Good morning and welcome to my jungle. This is Veronica with Oh Happy Plants, and I'm having my morning coffee here in an elephant mug. It's lovely. It's my giant mug, and I love it because you have to have a giant mug for your coffee, right? It just feels better. Anyway, it tastes better too when it's huge. um, I'm not going to go there. Anyway, so I just wanted to have a little chat about overwatering and why everybody jumps on that as like the number one cause of plant death all the time on like Facebook groups. I always see like you'll see a totally wilted plant and people will say, "Oh, you overwatered it," or a yellow leaf. No matter what is going on, whether it's a like some kind of bacterial pathogen or it's been wilty for days and it's dying because it needs water, or maybe it was overwatered, or maybe it's in the dark, which we'll get to in a minute. And people will jump on overwatering. Like 90% of the responses are people who, before asking any questions, they say it's overwatering. And so I just want to address that. And I mean, frankly, 90% of the time it's not overwatering, it's something else. Sometimes it's wilt because you've underwatered, because most people are so scared of overwatering because everybody is telling you not to, that you grossly underwater your plants and they're always suffering from wilt. And people also say that it's easier to bring a plant back from wilt than it is to bring a plant back from overwatering, but I actually disagree with that too. I'd say they're probably equally bad. Wilt will have a visual impact on the plant for a lot longer than overwatering will typically. Overwatering will give you some issues that need to be resolved, but if you move the plant to brighter light and make sure you drain the soil, like make sure it's not sitting in, sorry, I'm looking over here at my Dracaena that has a little tiny bit of wilt exhibited. But if you make sure a plant that's been overwatered is not like sitting in a puddle actively and you move it to really bright light, usually there's no reason to even mess with the roots. I see a lot of people buy a plant from like Lowe's or something like that, and I don't know if I should edit that out, from a box store, not any specific one, it happens at all of them, any box store, and whether you're in the US or somewhere else. And the person at the box store has no idea what they're doing. They are told to water the plants at the beginning of every shift. And so they're like indiscriminately just like spraying the water everywhere at the beginning of every shift. And plants don't need that much water. We know that, especially houseplants, especially certain ones like all of your succulents don't necessarily need that much water. So a lot of people will buy a plant at one of these stores. They'll find that it's totally saturated and they'll freak out and they'll take it apart at home. They'll repot it immediately. They'll, do all of this stuff because they assume before it's exhibiting any signs of overwatering or issues with that, or basically overwatering, which is a lack of oxygen in the soil. Before it's exhibiting anything, they assume that it's too much and they assume the plant is going to suffer. So what I actually recommend for situations like that is take your plant that's totally soggy and stick it in a bright window, and like it will use that water because it is growing, or put it under a grow light or something like that. So to understand the process a little bit, you want to think about why plants use water, how they use water, in what situations do they use more water. And so if a plant is in a really hot environment, especially if it's a hot, dry environment, it's going to be aspirating more. And that's not the right word, respirating. Sorry, it's morning, I haven't had all my coffee. Anyway, so respiration is the whole process of gas exchange where, like, when we breathe in, like, the mixture of air, we remove the oxygen, we exhale the same mixture except minus oxygen. So people say we breathe in oxygen, breathe out CO2, but really we're just picking out the oxygen from all of it. What plants do, they actually pull in, I think they pull in mostly just CO2. They may pull in the mixture as well. I'm not entirely sure. And they take the CO2 and they break it up. So they actually do make it into something else. They take the CO2 and they break it up. They take the carbon out and they use that. They use the energy from the sun to complete this process. Water happens along in there somewhere. They're taking electrons from water or something like that. And sorry, I'm not getting super scientific right now. Again, I'm pre-caffeine. Like I've only had half a cup and of like my normal 2. So we're not going too far down that rabbit hole right now, but basically plants will take that CO2 and chunk it up and take the carbon out. That's how they get the sugar. That's how they turn sunlight and air and water into sugar. Like that process always baffled me. And then I'm like, oh yeah, air, the carbon dioxide, carbon is the basis of sugar, right? So anyway, so they do that and they make their food. And the more food they make, the faster they're going to grow. The more light they have, the more they're going to be trying to make food, therefore the more water they're going to use. So if you put a plant that's super saturated, if you know that it has too much water already for whatever is going on, if you put that plant in brighter light, you know, making sure not to sunburn it, you want to like never put them like in direct sun outside because these are house plants, then you can kind of give it a little boost. Be like, okay, well, this thing is something I need to compensate for, so I'm going to give it more of this thing to encourage it to do the whole process a little bit more. So one other thing to take into account is temperature. Plants are going to photosynthesize faster if they are in warm temperatures, which that was actually kind of a hard thing in my garage this summer because I had plants out there. There are no windows in that garage. I have a grow light set up and it gets warm in there. And so with the heat, if you have plants in a whole lot of heat and they're pretty wet, but they're not getting the sun, you're going to notice overwatering issues come up faster because they're trying really hard to be able to photosynthesize, but they don't have enough light to really spark that chemical reaction, you know, to give them the energy to break that up. And so you're not going to notice the fast growth. They may use more water because they're breathing more of it out through their little pores, simply because they're trying to cool down. I don't know. Do plants sweat? I have no idea. Maybe I made that up. But anyway, they definitely do respirate more when it is hot outside. And so I just would assume that that's what they're doing. I have no idea. Raising the humidity in the environment. Or it might just be because air, like hot air, will absorb more water than cold air does. So plants just go through it faster naturally because if their stomata are open, then they're going to lose some moisture. Just like if you walk around with your mouth open all day, it's going to dry out, right? So anyway, where are we right now? Oh, if you buy an overwatered plant, if you buy a plant that's totally saturated, give it really good light. That's the number one takeaway. The other thing too is if you have an issue with overwatering and the plant is actually like exhibiting signs that it's been overwatered, you want to first look at the light that it's getting. And I actually bought a light meter. I'm very excited. And I'm going to walk around my house and show you guys what the heck is up with all of the issues with light that we're having and how what we believe is high light in our house. Like people might think that my kitchen is medium light, and my kitchen is on the low end of low as far as plants are concerned. Even though it's like, it looks bright in there to my eyes, you know, but right up by one of those lights, it's maybe 50-foot candles, like right next to the bulb. And down where the plants are, like 5 feet from the light where the plants are, is like 12-foot candles or something. And that's like ridiculously low. That's insane for a plant to be expected to survive there. And that's why those plants haven't been growing. Like, I have 3 Hoyas over there. I have 4 over there. One of them has been growing. 3 of them have just been sitting there for, I don't know, 2 years since I put them there. They haven't put out a single new leaf. Maybe one of them did, but the other ones are just kind of chilling. And that would be the issue right there. 12-foot candles is not enough to spark growth in a Hoya. So, but then over here, I've got Hoyas like this guy up here that's still pretty dark. You can't see him, sorry. This one right there. It's still pretty dark up there for him, but it is like, this is a west window behind me and he's over here. And so that is a little bit dark still. I haven't measured the light up in that area. But having a west window right here is enough light kind of coming at him sideways a little bit, not direct sun. And he has put out a few new leaves, not as much as a Hoya right in a window, but it's something, you know, at least he's doing something. Whereas the ones across the room, I need to fix that. You know, that's like, that right there is a sign of improper plant parentage, and I should be taken away for that one. Anyway, so basically the gist of the thing is you want to balance those elements, the light they get, the water they get, the heat, even fertilizer too. Like if you have a plant in the dark, you don't want to fertilize as much because it's just not going to use the fertilizer. It's only going to take up as much as it wants. And so if you have a plant in the light and you're not fertilizing, it's going to be using everything from its soil and it's going to deplete its soil faster. So you definitely want to fertilize. That's why they say to do it during the growing season. And I actually just do a light fertilizer most waterings year round because I have enough grow lights and things like that that they never really slow their growth. And then if there is a little extra fertilizer in the soil in the spring, they just start using it even more in the springtime, so it's there for them. I just do a really light fertilization, maybe a quarter strength if it's a strong fertilizer, maybe half strength if it's relatively weak, and I do that year round. And with the soils that I'm making, those don't actually need any fertilization, so I'll just leave those alone for a couple of months. And I'm actually making, I'm going to be working on a fertilizer that you just kind of sprinkle on the surface of the soil every couple of months, and then you just water it, and it'll sink down into the soil. And it's like all natural, like whole food fertilizer. So when that comes out, it's going to take a lot of a process because we have to get all of those things approved by the state and everything. But when that comes out, I'll definitely let you guys know, and I'll probably be asking for some testers before then, so stay tuned. Anyway, I hope that helps. If you have an overwatered plant, don't freak out, just give it some more light. I have taken plants home that even had like, overwatering can cause other pathogens to kind of crop up because like it affects the immune system. If you go outside and you get like hypothermia and you had a cold that was like nibbling at you a little bit, all of a sudden you're going to get that cold because your immune system was affected by this other factor. So with a plant, if they can't breathe necessarily, like if their roots can't get oxygen, then that's going to impact their immune system a little bit. And then maybe if they had like xanthomonas, this leaf pathogen, if they had that kind of nibbling at them that they just kind of had in their system, then all of a sudden that might show up. And that's why you see those leaf issues with overwatering typically, is because there's already this little pathogen in their system, and usually they're fine and they can just fight it off and keep it at bay. But then as soon as you overwater, it gives that little pathogen a foothold. And I brought home a Rhaphidophora tetrasperma that had a couple of issues, and one of those issues was, I think it was Erwinia actually, which is kind of like a rotty leaf disease when the leaves turn black and look rotten. And it had quite a bit of patches of that. When I brought it home, it was also totally saturated, and I just put it under really good light, and it cleared right up. And I'm just like, okay, dude. And so thinking about the plant as kind of a holistic, thinking about it holistically and as like a creature, as a living creature, is really valuable because it has its own little immune system. And if we treat it like all of these things affect that immune system, and if we remove one of those things like oxygen to the roots, or if we remove light or something like that, then it's not going to be able to do all of its physiological processes, and it will be impacted in various ways depending on what sorts of pathogens are already carried like within the soil, or if there are pathogens already present in the plant tissue or whatever, then it's going to allow those things to get in and take a foothold. And even pests, if there's 2 spider mites on your plant and all of a sudden your plant gets sick, or you underwater it or something like that, those spider mites are going to be like, oh, it's time, because the plant will naturally produce, most plants, I believe, will produce kind of like natural insecticides to, like, when they're healthy, they're able to produce these additional chemicals. Even like if a plant feels a beetle munching on it, it'll produce something to combat that and to drive the beetle away. And they're kind of magical, and I love them because of all of this nonsense that I feel like I don't even know the half of, I know I don't know the half of it. And so it's really valuable just to think about the plant holistically when you're trying to figure out, like, what does my plant want right now? If you think about all of the elements, and if you see like some kind of leaf disease or something like that, think about all of those elements, think about the history of the plant, and try to figure out like what in here went kind of awry, and how do we adapt to that and fix it. And again, overwatering is often misdiagnosed, so always ask questions before you just slap that label onto your problem. And if somebody slaps that label onto your problem for you, ask them how they got to that, you know? Like, why do you think it's overwatering? Oh, because your plant looked the same way one time. Okay, well, my plant is totally dry right now. Why is this overwatering? You know, like, definitely question when somebody just throws that as an answer to whatever problem that you're having. Yeah, that's about it. Okay, I hope all of that made sense, and I hope I didn't ramble too much, and I'm trying to maintain, like, keep my inner nerd in check a little bit and make things easy to understand. So definitely give me feedback if I am not doing this right, please. And again, I'm gonna go drink more coffee, and we'll probably have some more videos later. Thanks, guys. Bye.